Hey guys, in today's movie recap, we're gonna find out what happens when you access 100% of your brain. Enjoy. The film begins with our protagonist, Lucy, being pressured into doing a little favor for her new boyfriend, Richard. They've been dating for just a week, but already have a lovely relationship. Basically, he needs her to hand a briefcase over to his boss. Now, we don't know what's in the briefcase, but we do know that Richard isn't on the best of terms with his boss, Mr. Jang. Hence why he needs Lucy to take care of this for him. She'd love to, but she's super hungover and has exams coming up. Richard insists repeatedly, but Lucy declines without fail. They go back and forth a bit before Richard seals her fate, handcuffing her to the briefcase. Now, she has no choice. Lucy enters the hotel and nervously asks to speak with Mr. Jang. Tensions rise and the boss man and his crew pull up. She looks towards Richard for comfort, but he is shot and killed. The boss tips the hotel staff some cash and they turn a blind eye. Lucy is taken up and escorted past a few dead bodies, causing her to puke. She tries to speak to the Chinese men to no avail. They don't speak English. Fortunately though, Mr. Jang calls a translator. They give her the code for the briefcase and instruct her to open it while Jang and his henchmen take cover. Fortunately, it's not a bomb. Instead, it's filled with plastic bags containing a blue powder. Excellent. Now to make sure this is the real deal. Yep, that's the real deal. Your services are no longer required. Mr. Jang offers a spooked Lucy a job. She declines and receives a counteroffer. We cut to a lecture about brain capacity and come to learn that all organisms only utilize a tiny percentage of their total neural capacity. Humans, for example, only have access to roughly 15%, while dolphins, with their ability to echolocate, can tap into 20%. Professor Norman's hypothesis states that past 20%, the doors really start to open up. You gain full control of your body and its cells. Past 30%, you're able to control others, and even past that, you begin to take control of matter itself. Though, not even his creative mind can picture what happens at 100%. Let's find out. Lucy awakens with pain in her stomach and is escorted to a room where she meets with other victims. A dapper Englishman explains that they hid a bag of drugs, known as CPH4, inside them and arranged for them to take flights. Upon arrival, the drugs will be surgically retrieved and everyone can go back to living their normal life. In the meanwhile, Lucy is detained by some goons. One of them tries to inspect the goods, but Lucy's got bite. The goon doesn't take kindly to rejection and beats her, kicking her right where the bag was implanted. She lays paralyzed in pain as we witness the bag tear open, leaking its contents into her body. A transformation begins as the substance wreaks havoc inside her. Her eyes turn blue, she begins to seize, and wow, okay, I guess gravity's out the window. Alrighty then. Lucy awakens a new woman. She's calm, cool, and collected. Another goon enters the room, and Lucy flashes a smirk and a cheeky leg spread, inviting him closer. She's got a little more in store than he's ready for. What a badass. Donning her new powers, she aimbots the other henchman and then shoots an innocent taxi driver for not speaking English. Fortunately, the other one does, and she calmly asks him to take her to the hospital. Lucy, now able to read Chinese, makes her way to an operating room. She examines the charts of the man on the operating table before shooting him and clearing the space for herself. She informs the doctors that his tumor had already spread and that they wouldn't have been able to save him. Lucy informs them of the leaky bag of drugs inside her, and they proceed to remove it. During the operation, she borrows the doctor's phone and calls her mother. She tells her she loves her, and she shares that she can recall all the thousands of kisses she's received over her lifetime. The doctor successfully removes the bag, and Lucy heads back to the taxi. She's driven back to the hotel, the heart of this drug operation. She storms in and calmly dispatches the henchman. Damn, she even has wall hack. She stabs Mr. Jang in both his hands and scans through his brain in order to find where the other victims are headed. Sometime later, Lucy stops by her friend's house. She borrows her computer and proceeds to search away at light speed while they make small talk. Lucy finds out about Professor Norman and his research and decides to give him a call. She gives him the lowdown on her condition and confirms that all his theories were in fact correct. She hacks into his TV and phone with her powers to prove it. With all this new knowledge and no idea what to do with it, she seeks his guidance. He suggests that like all living cells, she should pass down the knowledge to the next generation. She agrees and states that she'll be at his door in Paris in 12 hours. On the way to her flight to Paris, Lucy switches up her hair as news stations broadcast the scenes of her crimes. Using her powers, she gets in touch with a local police captain, Pierre, and warns him about the drug trafficking. She sends him the itineraries of the men carrying around their drugs inside of them. She entrusts him to capture the men and retrieve the CPH4 for her. He coordinates with the airport security for all the destinations the men will be arriving. They are promptly collected, except for one, who damn near runs away, but they get him. Meanwhile, Lucy is on a flight to Paris to first meet with her new detective friend to obtain the goods, and then meet with Professor Norman. She's a super hacker now, just hacking away for no reason on 2 computers at the same time. Very cool. She gets some champagne and toasts to knowledge, but something is wrong. Her teeth are falling out. She looks on in horror as the cells in her body begin to tear off and float away. She gets up and stumbles off to the bathroom to the dismay of passengers and crew alike. The flight is landing soon, which means she should be seated. As the flight crew clamors to get her out of the bathroom, Lucy's practically melting away. She takes out the bag of CPH4 and munches on it in an effort to fix things. It seems to work, but then she completely explodes. Fortunately, she survives this and reassembles herself sometime between the flight and ending up in this bed. She awakens and Pierre and his station are alerted, but Lucy is already on her way out. A room full of armed men hold her at gunpoint. She spots Pierre, recognizing his voice, and calmly tells him they need to talk, before putting the entire room to sleep with a mere hand gesture. She tells him she needs the rest of the CPH4 for medicinal purposes, and anyway, it's safer in her hands. Can't argue with that. They get in his car and drive to the hospital, where the apprehended men are waiting to have the CPH4 removed from their bellies. Lucy hacks into the phone grid and learns that the Chinese men are headed there too, to collect their merchandise. Lucy switches over to the driver's side and begins to speed towards oncoming traffic. Jesus Christ. I mean, I understand that she's in a race against time here, but imagine how many people died or are gravely injured during this. Oh great, the cops are on her tail now. That's alright, she'll just use her powers to manipulate one of these things and they're all dead. Beautiful. Back at the hospital, the Chinese crew have intercepted the men and are in the process of retrieving their merchandise. They're getting their drugs, dead or alive. The policeman that was supposed to be watching them returns and a shootout occurs. The last remaining victim flees, but is gunned down by G, the top henchman. Him and his crew run into Lucy. She traps them in the corridor with an invisible force field, then sends all their weapons flying towards the ceiling. G commands them to fight on, and they all take on their battle stances and push forward. One by one, Lucy sends them all flying towards the ceiling, trapping them in place. G gets the same treatment as Lucy retrieves the briefcase. Before heading out, she gets the final bag from the man that was shot. Her collection is now complete. Now, to meet with Professor Norman. He's left his hotel and has instead met with several high-ranking colleagues in fields such as quantum physics and neuroscience. Of course, Lucy somehow already knows this and unexpectedly meets them there at the university. She proceeds to prove her abilities to them by making this one guy relive the death of his daughter. Okay, I guess that's one way to do it. She proceeds to tell them some scientific mumbo-jumbo about how cells communicate a bunch and can deconstruct and reconstruct in any way they like. Oh, and also, time is at the center of everything. She tells Professor Norman that she's going to create a computer and upload all her acquired knowledge into it for the benefit of mankind. All the meanwhile, Zhang and his small army are about to assault the university with all the firepower they got. Lucy senses this and tells Pierre to hold them back, warning him that she'll need to dedicate full focus on the task ahead. Pierre and Zhang, along with their men, face off and battle it out while Lucy gets hooked up with IVs full of CPH4. She sucks it all up, and then a black fluid-like structure emerges from her body and begins to consume all the electronics around the room. The room goes completely white, and the fluid-like mass begins to form what appears to be a next-generation computer. Zhang and his top henchman, G, prepare to make their final push. They go out guns blazing, and G grabs a freaking bazooka, slides across the floor, and launches it towards Lucy's room. As it explodes, Lucy travels through space and time. She's in New York, sitting and watching as she scrolls through time like it's a video. She sees old-timey New York, Indians, dinosaurs, and even the first woman. Guess what her name is? That's right, Lucy. They touch fingers, then Lucy begins to unlock more and more of her brain. We're treated to a delightful and abstract displays of the universe and all its secrets unfolding. Zhang encroaches from behind as Lucy nears the completion of her full awakening. As he pulls the trigger and unloads, she's gone. With anger and confusion, he turns his sights on the scientists, but Pierre saves them, gunning Zhang down. The alien-like computer begins to move and pops out a simple USB drive. Professor Norman pulls it out and the computer disintegrates. Pierre asks where Lucy went and she responds, "Yep, she's basically God now."